All right, I think we're ready to get started. Well, welcome everyone to Embracing a Growth Mindset. I'm Megan McKinney, Associate Director for the Duck Career Network in the Alumni Association, and I am happy to introduce our presenter, Chera Justice. As a leadership and well-being consultant, Chera is responsible for developing organizational strategy for clients through engagement, education, one-on-one coaching, and workshops. She spends most of her time working with executives and HR to determine best practices within organizations to support the cultural and leadership development of the community with a strategic well-being focus. She's consulted in areas of government, tech, construction, nonprofit, higher ed, and hospital systems, and has worked with companies like Microsoft, Main Street, and Regents. She holds a bachelor's in sociology from the U of O, as well as master's degrees in both public health and applied science from Indiana University. Chera is here today to teach techniques for implementing a growth mindset into your personal life and your work environment, and we'll discuss how work teams can embrace a shift in mentality to create an environment where everyone is supported in gaining new skills and having their insights and perspectives considered. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chera to begin her presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Megan. I really appreciate that lovely, lovely introduction. Just wanted to double check my audio is good, right? I'm hopeful. Well, welcome everyone. Like Megan said, my name is Chera Justice, and I am so happy that you're all here with me today. I know you all could probably be doing 1,000 other things with your life and your time, but here you are with me. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We're going to start by talking about what growth really is. I'm going to dive right into the content because I think it's so important and we've got a lot to cover today. In this, I'm going to quote Carol Dweck right away. She was a researcher from Stanford who coined the term growth mindset and has published books and research articles on this topic. And she says, in a growth mindset, people believe that their most basic abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. Brains and talent are just the starting point. This view creates a love for learning and a resilience that is essential for great accomplishment. Essentially, people with growth mindsets believe that skills and intelligence are something that people can develop, that while people have inherent qualities and traits, success comes from constant personal development. And with that in mind, moving through that, we're going to touch on this concept a little bit more expansively through this video. I think the authors here, the curators of this content, do a phenomenal job of explaining a growth mindset, and I'm going to let them take it for just a couple minutes. One more time.
The phrase growth mindset has become almost ubiquitous. First coined by researcher and professor of psychology at Stanford University, Carol Dweck, it has been adopted by everyone from school administrators to business executives to professional athletes. NBA champion and basketball superstar LeBron James has been quoted by the New York Post as saying, "It's always about a growth mindset. It's the fact that you know that you can do better, even at our age, even with our accolades, even with what we've done in our careers, we still feel like we can improve." According to Dweck herself, it is the belief that skills and intelligence can be grown and developed through hard work, good strategies, and input from others. Those with a growth mindset tend to achieve more than those with a more fixed mindset because they focus less on looking smart and more on learning and growing. It's about getting better. While thinking about what a growth mindset is, it's important to consider what it isn't. A growth mindset isn't just an attitude of keeping an open mind or a positive outlook. It isn't a matter of maintaining a belief that good things will come your way. It isn't just a matter of praising or rewarding effort. And it isn't keeping with a fixed mindset. Fixed mindsets are all too common, both in business and in general. Those with a fixed mindset maintain the belief that skills and intelligence are predetermined. They are irrationally concerned with being right and looking good in front of others. The fixed mindset suggests that learning should be effortless. You either have a knack for it or you don't. It encourages you to avoid mistakes at all costs and views challenges as roadblocks and barriers. It pigeonholes what success is and who can achieve it. Conversely, a key characteristic of the growth mindset asserts that skills and knowledge can be and are developed, and that learning requires time and effort. It is not set, but rather fluid and capable of being nurtured. Further characteristics are that it treats mistakes as learning opportunities, and the challenges that mistakes generate simply as obstacles that need to be overcome. A growth mindset focuses on yet. It is the hallmark of the growth mindset. I have not learned this yet. I may not be able to do this yet, but I can work hard and get better. And this is not just pop psychology. Research in brain science has proven that our brains grow and evolve constantly. We can and do create new neural pathways throughout our lives. This ability is called neuroplasticity, and studies are conclusive that, with effort, we can continue to learn and grow skills and talent, even if we don't entirely believe it yet. A growth mindset allows for the potential and promise of learning, getting better, increasing your knowledge and skills. It encourages achieving ever higher levels of potential and performance, even if you haven't gotten all the way there yet.
All right. I apologize for that and that quick double up on that. This is what I get for trying to tap on the chat feature while also showing a video. So here we are. So some of the key assumptions from that, what we're able to take away from this concept of a growth mindset, we inherently walk into dynamics where we make assumptions about the experience, right? In a growth mindset, a lot of our assumptions is that mindsets are either fixed and that they're either or. They're either this or they're that. It's kind of a black and white thinking system, and it's a binary system that really inhibits our capacity for growth. When in actuality, growth is on a continuum, fixed at one level and growth, high growth at another. Many of us actually fall on that continuum in varied spaces, and we'll get into that continuum here in a little bit. Another assumption about a growth mindset is that organizations themselves have a mindset, when in actuality, it's the people that comprise the organizations that compose the mindset. It's the individual contributors that over time develop what we call culture and how it's influenced and how things shift and how objectives and organizations change. The organization itself is not something that is a thinking, feeling entity. It does not have a mindset of its own. It's the people that build the mindset. Another assumption is that growth equals always a positive mindset, when in actuality, having a growth mindset doesn't mean that you're exuding toxic positivity, that you're always thinking that you can achieve everything you put your mind to. It takes in consideration that there are many factors that influence our growth, and that potential and perseverance are fundamental elements of how we cultivate growth. Another assumption, growth mindset, is positive results, when in actuality, a growth mindset is a recipe. It's a recipe of personal growth plus time and energy that builds a skill and develops results. Lastly, an assumption that we typically make about growth is that unlimited potential is all around us. No matter where we are or how we start, potential is everywhere. When truly, on a growth mindset perspective, we look at people and their natural ability, but also innate ability that comprises their limitations that may affect their capacity to take something on. For example, I may not have the genetic makeup to make me capable of dunking a basketball, for instance. So does that mean that I don't embrace a growth mindset just because I know that my genetic makeup doesn't allow for me to do a certain skill? No. I can foster growth in other aspects of my life while also keeping in mind context to the cultural situation at hand and what I'm applying it to. Here, we're going to define a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset on one end of the continuum looks at intelligence as static or deterministic in worldview. Things are the way that they've always been. They're always going to be this way. I am just who I am. I'm not going to change. What's the point, right? This tends to lead to more of a desire to look intelligent and therefore avoid challenge, avoid obstacle, or give up quickly when it comes to obstacles. We see effort is fruitless if we have more of a fixed mindset. There's no point in trying. It's not going to change anything, right? I'm sure we've all heard that or ourselves have said that at one point or another. We ignore constructive criticism. I don't want feedback. I'm going to avoid at all costs. I'm going to be a wallflower and sit back. We're easily threatened by the success of others. I am constantly comparing myself and I see that other people are successful. And so what's the point of even trying if I'm never going to be as good as they are? Comparison is the thief of joy, my friends. Also, in this fixed mindset, we think that resulting in early plateaus, our potential is minimized. Our achievement ratio to potential is never going to equate to something that strikes value or adds or contributes anything meaningful to our life. So we peak early. That's kind of how we look at things more often than not. With more of a growth mindset, we can cultivate a belief system that intelligence is developed. We have a greater sense of free will and personal action attributed to results in our lives. So this leads to a desire to learn. We are more willing to embrace challenges, to see effort as a path to mastery. We learn from constructive criticism and we persist in the face of obstacles. We look at them as hurdles rather than as roadblocks. We find lessons and inspiration in the success of other people. I feel inspired by my community or inspired by this person. I'm eager to learn how they got to where they are. We look at results and high levels of achievement and we desire success. And what we define as success, we'll talk a little bit about that later on as well. But before we do that, I'm going to play another video. I'm not going to touch the screen this time when I do. But as I play this video, I think it's really important to keep in mind that this isn't just a feel-good, gimmicky type of way of approaching how we cultivate our sense of being, meaning, and purpose in this world. Genuinely, there are neural synapses that change when we think about taking on new ways of thinking, believing, and being. And this talks a little bit more around what's happening with neuroplasticity. So it's the science behind backing up these, feel-good elements of why we might be interested in a growth mindset.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-traveled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep traveling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
So I love that video because I think it gives us a really beautiful opportunity to think about growth and fixed mindsets in a way that shifts the mentality that I am the way that I am and that I'm never going to change, or this is just facts about my life. And the story that I've told myself over and over and over again is it's going to be this way, and that's the only way of looking at it. When in actuality, new habits and new ways of thinking can literally be changing all the time because our brain is constantly changing. Just like the cells in our bodies are constantly changing. We are not the same person that we were when we were born, or when we were 14, or when we're going to be when we're 75 or 100, right? We are constantly changing, whether or not we want to fully buy into that, whether or not we fully believe that. My face doesn't look the same as it did 20 years ago, nor will it look in 20 years. I am always changing. But now I get to make a decision in my life and whether or not I'm going to be directive about that change. Am I going to be intentional and strategic about that change? Or am I going to let change happen intuitively around me and kind of react all the time to whatever is being asked of me? And so here we dive a little bit more into how the growth and fixed mindsets may look on the continuum. Most of us land somewhere in the middle in most dimensions of how we assess growth mindset. On one end of the continuum, we have fully fixed, low growth, mixed growth, and high growth. Most of us, again, aren't all the way high growth or all the way mixed. Like these blue lines indicate in between each dimension, we fall in the middle in sporadic areas. When we think about this, it's important to note that there might be areas where I'm completely content where I'm at. I may be more in a mixed state of mind, and I'm okay with that. I don't need to embrace high growth all the time in every aspect of my life. Please know I'm not asking you to do that. But I am asking you to take a second to be inquisitive about where you might land on this continuum. So first, we look at worldview. If we have more of a fixed mindset, we see ourselves as totally unchangeable. If we have a mixed mindset, we look at growth in limited areas. Life offers limited choices, and in some places, I'm willing to grow, and other places, not so much. High growth looks at us, and we think critically about how we're capable of changing our beliefs. We decide what we want, what action we want to create around the goals of what we want. The next dimension is challenges. If we're fixed, we avoid them at all costs. We give up quickly. No, thank you. Not it. Not doing it today. Nope, not happening, right? If we're in mixed, we prefer clear goals. I know I want to grow and I'm embracing this challenge, but I want to know that I have a clear objective that I'm aiming for. I'll persist when I see that I am making progress. Otherwise, it's not for me. High growth, I embrace challenge all the time, even in ambiguity. I'm in it for the long run. I'm looking at how I can cultivate a sense of perseverance, even though I know I'm about to be challenged in multiple areas of my life. Next dimension, effort. Fixed, effort is associated with failure. No good, not going to happen. If I try at this, I'm inevitably going to fail. And that's the story I'm going to keep telling myself. There's no change in my mind about it. Mixed, we look at effort as necessary, but not always enjoyable. We're more willing to embrace the suck, if you will. High growth, effort is a path to mastery. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep putting my energy into this thing because I know with time I will get better. It's a belief system in ourselves. Feedback, the next dimension. For a fixed mindset, we might ignore feedback altogether. Again, I want to blend in. I don't want feedback at all. I don't want to hear anything. I just kind of want to do my job or do my thing and be left alone. Mixed, we're looking for feedback when we see that it's useful or it's achievable. I know I want feedback. I know I'm going to gain value from it, but I only want it on my terms. I don't want it all the time. I don't want to hear feedback that I know I can't change anything about. High growth here, we request feedback all the time. We are constantly seeking out other resources and aiming to achieve and push ourselves and ask for that feedback. Mistakes. Fixed, we're a little bit more active towards avoiding mistakes. We don't want anyone to see us. We don't want to see anyone to see our struggle, to see us fall, because we then tell ourselves a story that we are failures. And so there's no point in trying because I knew I'd be a failure. So let's not show anyone that I am flawed. Mixed, we expect mistakes and we understand that they can be corrected. High growth, we deliberately stretch ourselves for errors. We are interested in our learning potential over everything else. Other success, next dimension. If we have a fixed mindset, we can be threatened by other people's successes. We avoid competition, we avoid comparison, or we're constantly comparing ourselves. We avoid situations where that public comparison is visible. In a mixed mindset here, we support others, but we may be more motivated to compete with people as a means to seeing their success. Oh, well, Sam did this thing really great. Well, I'm going to show everybody that I can do it better, right? In a high growth dynamic here, we might seek out experts and others to learn their secrets. What are they doing really well? And how can I learn from them? I really want to be successful in this. And I want to figure out how I can be successful. So I'm going to tap the shoulder of all these different people I see being successful. And I'm going to give them high fives when they do. Offered support, last dimension here. When we have a more fixed mindset, we tend to turn down help really quickly. We don't want support. We shy away from asking for help all the time. Mixed, we're willing to accept help when it's offered, but we don't normally seek it out. I won't ask you for your support. I won't ask you for your help, but I do graciously receive it when you offer it. High growth, we are seeking out help and resources all over the place. We want to give out opportunities to be able to feel supported and to support others all the time. So help me figure out this new thing. Help me understand a new perspective. Years ago, I was fortunate enough to be able to be at a presentation where Obama spoke. And I'm not bringing this a political conversation at all, but simply it helped to shift my perspective on something, because this is an area, candidly, that I tend to be a little bit more fixed in. I don't like asking for help. I don't like receiving help. I don't want to appear weak. So in my own mindset to shift around this, I heard him say, because the panelist asked him, you know, you stepped into a role where a lot of the times you may not have known what you were doing or how to navigate these dynamics. How did you do that? And he, for example, they were talking about foreign policy, something that he wasn't really super privy to prior to becoming president. He was more localized. And he said really quickly, surround yourself with people who know more than you do, and don't be afraid to ask for help. And I thought to myself, that's a really beautiful way of looking at dynamics and where I can grow, surrounding myself with people who know more than I do and tapping into them for resource allocation and support, understanding that they may have a lot more context or insight about something, and I can lean into them. And it creates a reciprocal relationship between the two of us. When I know they're doing something really inspiring, I can be inspired, and then I know that they can lean into me when the tables are turned. It creates, again, that reciprocity. So let's think about practical applications. How do we cultivate the skills around growth if we're interested in certain areas of our life after we've critically examined where we sit on that continuum in multiple areas of our lives? Embracing a growth mindset asks us to believe that positive improvement is possible if we put in time, if we embrace the suck, if we develop new strategies to overcome our challenges, and if we view failure as part of learning. We work toward a goal without these views that may not elicit positive results, may not get us to the outcomes that we're searching for. So if we cultivate a growth mindset, we're looking for time and skill development in tandem along the way. So what are the benefits of a growth mindset? And here I kind of want to open up the chat a little bit and hear what your all's feedback might be. What are some things that you think are the benefits of embracing a growth mindset? Any thoughts, my friends, from what you're thinking about why you might, you're all here for a reason. I'm sure you all wanted to learn a little bit about growth mindset. What are some areas in which that thing you find the benefits in your life? Lifelong learning, growth is essential for true innovation, not fearing mistakes in front of important people. I love it. You can accidentally make progress in places you didn't expect. Excellent. I love all of these. Setting long-term goals. Good, absolutely. Yeah, redefining success, freedom to work toward what you want. Hi, Darren. Give yourself a break. It applies to all aspects of life to me. Oh, I love this. Ah, I love it. Great, this is phenomenal. You all have come here for a reason, right? You're finding your motivation in this in some capacity in one way or another. Here, it's important to really think critically around what motivates you. What's inspiring you to make these changes in your life? If you notice that you're on a little bit more of a lower or more fixed mindset within a certain dimension, how and why are you interested in evolving? When we figure out our motivations, it sparks our growth. It gets us driven towards our objective. And one of the ways to examine our motivations is through intrinsic or extrinsically linked inspirations. So intrinsically motivated people typically find motivation through my own interests, right? I'm self-motivated. These are people who like to work out on their own. They don't need a group dynamic. They like individual project work. They feel really convicted on their own accord. Teaching themselves new skills like guitar or piano or what have you. Extrinsic motivated people typically find more motivation through group dynamics. People who like group fitness, like CrossFit or cycling or yoga, people who are motivated by the people around them and inspired to succeed in a community dynamic. Now, most of us also are intrinsically motivated and extrinsically motivated in certain aspects of our life. Not always, but sometimes those things blend together. Think about what you identify in areas of your life. Once you think about those motivating factors, why you're wanting to change, how you're motivated, that you see yourself aiming to grow, and try to be strategic about it. There's a lot of areas in our lives, and highly motivated people tend to focus on all these aspects of their world that they want to change. And oftentimes they do it at the exact same time. The problem with trying to do too many things at once is that a lot of things tend to fall between the cracks. So think strategically about your highest priority and move through that process individually. Okay, start with where you are and where you're wanting to go. We can't tell where we're going without first knowing where we are. You have to examine where I stand right now and where I'm hoping to go. And what are the areas, what are the steps in between that I can see? There may be steps along the way that I can't see, but first to see, where is it that I am moving toward? I can see a road starting to form, a path starting to forge ahead of me. Examine where you might sit on the continuum with each and every dimension. Are you content in where you land? Asking yourself along the way, am I content with being a little bit more fixed in this area? Because I know I'm gearing my energy toward more growth in these other areas of my life. Or am I okay being super high growth here, knowing that I might have to be a little bit more fixed in other areas? Try to thoughtfully determine if you are where you want to stay. And know that that can shift, that can change. You don't have to make a decision today or tomorrow or this week and ride that out to the rest of eternity. You can change your mind with time. And if no one's giving you that permission, please know that I always do. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to change your perspectives on things. Notice the examples in your world that are influencing your growth. Nipsey Hussle, which I love the fact that I can bring him into this conversation today, is famously quoted for saying, if you look at the people in your circle and you don't get inspired, you don't have a circle, you have a cage. I think that is so important to consider when we know that we are thinking, feeling, emotional beings that are constantly influenced by the world around us. I think we all know that in a grandiose scale from what we've experienced during COVID and a lot of what happened in the social unrest during the same time, right? There's a lot of external factors that influence us internally, but more innately and practically applied to our immediate circles are the people you're surrounding yourself inspiring you. Are they people that motivate you, that uplift you, that encourage you, that support you? Or do you feel like you're surrounded by a bunch of like-minded people? And here's where we kind of get a little bit more into inclusion of thought and inclusion of ideas and equity and being mindful, especially when it comes to the organizational context of when I look around the room, am I surrounded by a bunch of people who speak like me, who talk, who walk like me, who look like me? Or am I surrounded by people who have various different backgrounds and experiences and expertise? Find inquisition in your life, within your peers, within your family, within your colleagues. See if anyone has been doing work on their own development when it comes to growth. Ask them these questions. Have you heard of a growth mindset before? Are you familiar with this process? Is there anything in your life that you're working hard on right now? I'd love to support you in that and to learn from you. Those vulnerable conversations open up doorways for people to have really innately deep and meaningful connections. And it may provide insight and perspective that you never had before about this person. Adjust your view of failure. Look at failure as part of the learning process and try to shift your mindset around that. It's a symbol of effort. It's a symbol of your ability to persevere. Nobody masters an endeavor perfectly the first time that they do it. Like, let's just all think for a second of something that we've tried in our lives that we were not phenomenal at the very first time we did it. I can think probably for me, riding a motorcycle. The first time I did it, I literally drove into a tree, right? Not awesome, wasn't awesome. But it's something that I could develop skills around should I choose to keep practicing it, right? Not awesome. Or if any of you have teenagers or have been in a car with a teenager learning how to drive for the first time, it's horrifyingly scary. But also, they're not going to be that terrible the next time that they drive. Every time after the first time, it's going to keep getting better over time. Same thing when we all learn how to ride a bike or swim or had a tough conversation with a loved one. These opportunities create new neural networks that helps with our neuroplasticity when we embrace that we're not going to be perfect at everything the first time that we do it, but the more patterned and rote repetition of the action, the better we become at it. So embrace the failure, my friends. Understand your limitations. Recognize that some things will be beyond your own achievement. Try to set realistic goals. It helps boost your confidence and efficacy in setting measurable, attainable goals. As we talk about SMART goals here. SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Specific, for example, an example of this would be, I'm going to learn guitar, specifically my favorite Brandi Carlile song, by Christmas or by January 1st, by the new year. So it's specific. I've measured it and I'm doing a specific song. I'm playing guitar. It is achievable. I have a guitar. It's relevant in my life. It's been an ambition of mine for a long time. And I just set a time bound on it. Just give myself a date. This is going to happen. When we create these small SMART goals around our life, things we want to do and achieve, we're able to build our confidence when we do achieve these endeavors. These are things that give us opportunities to be able to boost our own self-confidence in what we're aiming to achieve. Now, with that in mind, not all endeavors are achievable. So we ask if this is achievable or not. For example, I'm 5'6". I'm never going to be able to dunk a basketball on a standard basketball hoop, unless I have maybe a trampoline that I can jump off of and then dunk. But it's not going to be a realistic thing in my life. It's not realistic. So I need to be mindful of that when I am examining these SMART goals and how I'm setting those up in my life. Take a moment to view challenge as an opportunity. Life is full of challenges. We will always be thrown off by difficulty. None of us get out of here alive. And none of us get out of here without experiencing hardship. It's just a fact about being human. So rather than shying away from it or avoiding it or putting up barriers around it, how can we learn to embrace that we're going to experience these difficulties in our lives? And instead of seeing it as a roadblock or an inhibiting factor, maybe it's just a hurdle. And I'm going to do just this. I'm going to jump over this hurdle. And I might catch my toe on that hurdle, or I might catch my knee on that hurdle. And I might fall, but I also might get back up and I might hit every other hurdle after that, because now I know how to do it. Now I can have confidence in it. Now I know that I can overcome these failures and these opportunities or these difficult challenges ahead of me. The more difficult the challenge, the greater opportunity for learning and for growth. Another opportunity for us to think about is adding daily reflection in our life. Many of us spend time reflecting at the end of the day. Usually this comes in the form of someone asking you, hey, how was your day today? Hey, how was work? What have you? So then we usually give a slew of different answers about how our day went, and we kind of reflect on what happened today. What did I go through? How have I been feeling? But in this, I encourage you to notice the elements of your day that didn't go well. And this is where we get a little bit into avoiding the toxic positivity around what is often perceived when we embrace a growth mindset. Because when we notice what didn't go well, we can thread out areas where we learn from our experiences. This points into a structure for ourselves to be able to avoid scrutiny and to avoid rumination, but also embraces an opportunity for us to bring in self-awareness and critical learning skills. When I evaluate how I've been feeling and the areas of my life that are not going as well as I would like, I can be more reflective and more willing to adjust how those things aren't going, because nothing is ever 100% someone else's fault. Usually when we have brush ups against something, or usually when we navigate something that's challenging, we are a contributing factor to that challenge in some way, shape, or form. So when we notice these elements that aren't going well, if we reflect on them, we can think critically about how can I re-examine either my viewpoint of it, how I approach it next time, or what about that experience taught me a lesson. Reduce seeking approval. This is a big one for my people pleasers that are here today. My type A people, people who like control. There's a lot of seeking approval from others that we do inherently in our society. We take on other people's objectives, other people's desires when we seek their approval. So here I'm going to challenge you to think more critically about what it is that you're doing and practice an opportunity for you to develop comfort and stretching yourself for your own objectives, for your own goals. Because when we seek approval, and that's our default mode all the time, it's easy to get caught up in a fixed mindset. I'm either right or I'm wrong. This is either black or it's white. It's either correct or it's not. But when we shift our thinking less around what other people think of us and more around what we think of ourselves, it gives us an opportunity to be a lot more intentional about our own interests rather than pursuing other people's approval of us. Really a lot easier said than done, I know. Celebrate others. Oh my gosh, this is such a big one. When others around us succeed, don't forget to celebrate them. Try not to look at it as a competition, but honor them and try to be genuine about it. You know, again, comparison is the thief of joy. When you are in a dynamic with someone and you see them successfully taking something on, give them kudos, give them a cheers, give them a high five. It creates an opportunity to connect with people and feel inspired that they've accomplished something so awesome that you can't help but to feel happy for them. And then you get an opportunity to learn from them. Don't be afraid to ask them how they got to where they are, how they achieved this thing. It might unlock new ways of thinking for yourself. Then we look at our own words and our own actions. This is the story that we tell ourselves. In every dynamic and every interaction, there is an inherent bias that we have to tell ourselves our own story. And most of us have a negativity bias. So this is where we get into the yet part of the conversation. How do you talk about your own talents and your own skills? Do you find yourself saying things like, I'm terrible at this. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at science. I'm not good at words. Or they have such a natural talent at this thing. They're so good at that. They've just always been so good at that. Or I'm never going to figure this out. This is never going to be my cup of tea, right? I'm going to encourage you to try swapping some of this language. Rather than saying, I'm not good at this, maybe you say, I'm not great at this yet. Or rather than saying they have so much natural talent, she's putting in so much work to foster an amazing talent. I'm so impressed by her. I'm not going to keep trying to self-sabotage myself by saying I'm not good at things. I'm going to keep trying to master this. So seek out others who are aiming to grow in similar ways with you and keep you accountable with this. That may be your spouse, that may be your network of peers at work, that may be your supervisor. However, it cultivates a different perspective on how we're able to build those new neural networks with neuroplasticity. And again, all of the yets. I can't do this yet. This doesn't work yet. I don't know yet. It doesn't make sense yet. I don't get it yet. I'm not good at this yet. We tend to stop before we get to the yet. And we just build a story around our own capabilities so often. And again, it's very self-deprecating and often from a negativity bias that I'm not going to ever be this good enough person. And that's also because we're extrinsically motivated by appeasing whatever it is we've determined someone else's appraisal of us are. So think critically about that. How in our own lives are we doing these things? And how may we be doing that unconsciously with people around us? This is a big one. If you're in a leadership role, which I think we all are in different aspects of our lives, whether that's as a parent, as a partner, as a supervisor, as a director, however that may show up in your life, we're all in leadership roles in different facets. And when we praise effort and action, rather than inherent traits, it helps other people around us to develop this growth mindset as well, creating a cyclical pattern, building new habits and positive reinforcement for people. And what I mean by that is, for example, a colleague at work brings you a report, or your kiddo brings you a test that they performed really well on. So rather than saying to your colleague, thanks, good work, as they throw the report on your desk passively, or to your kid, wow, you did so great, you are so smart. Try thinking about pausing with your colleague and saying, wow, thank you so much for working on this. It's so clear to me that you put in a lot of effort. I really appreciate that. Or to your kiddo, saying, wow, great work. You have put in a lot of time and energy into knowing this material. I'm so proud of you for working so hard. One of the things that Carol Dweck says in a lot of the research she has brought forth with growth mindset is that conclusively, telling children they're talented or smart can actually hurt them. It puts them into a fixed mindset and makes them think that what you value in them is fixed intelligence. It makes them afraid of mistakes and it makes them less eager to learn. If our constant reinforcement and praise as parents is to say, you're so smart, you're so good at this, you're so talented, what happens when the kiddo doesn't do so well on an exam, a science exam? Oh, I'm going to let my parents down now because they thought I was so smart and clearly I'm not, right? When we praise effort over outcome, people are more willing to fail and know that they can learn from their mistakes. Really important one. All right, another piece of this and last video, I promise, and being really mindful of your all's time, I would argue that this is a fundamental element of developing a growth mindset, this pausing and introspection that we can develop through mindfulness. And so here we have a story from Dan Harris, who helped to bolster Happify. If you aren't familiar with Happify, it's a phenomenal resource. I highly recommend it to any and everyone. But he talks here about practical application of mindfulness. And if you aren't familiar with Dan Harris, he is a journalist who had an anxiety attack on live television where he totally was flooded and stopped talking in the middle of a live broadcast. And from that, he has learned to cultivate this path of mindfulness.
You may have heard this word mindfulness. It's become something of a buzz phrase of late. I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this could be. Just as an example, driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us, we normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then what happens next? You immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. With just a little bit of mindfulness, in that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road, screaming at them with your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be rendered by mindfulness into some lifeless, non-judgmental blob. The proposition is that you should learn how to respond wisely to things that happen to you rather than just reacting blindly. And that, my friends, is a superpower. How do you get it? The way to get it is through meditation. I believe that meditation and mindfulness are the next big public health revolution. In the 1940s, if you told somebody you were going running, they would have said, who's chasing you? But then what happened next? The scientists swooped in, they showed that physical exercise is really good for you. And now all of us do it. And if we don't, we feel guilty about it. And that's where I think we're headed with mindfulness and meditation. It's going to join the pantheon of no-brainers like brushing your teeth, eating well, and taking the meds your doctor prescribed for you. Let me just close by saying, mindfulness is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not going to render your life a nonstop parade of unicorns and rainbows. Nonetheless, this is a superpower and one that is accessible by you immediately.
Okay, so I want to pause right there and just kind of get your all's feedback. We've gone through a lot of different techniques to embracing a growth mindset. I think there's 14 different techniques that I included there. Wanting to get your feedback on this and pause and making if there are any questions in the question and answer box, please let me know. I'm happy to go through any of those.
Chera, it does look like we had quite a few questions come in the Q&A box. Would you like to look at some of those right now?
Sure, yeah, totally.
Awesome. So let me just choose one from here. Somebody had asked, isn't setting a well-defined goal egotistical for long range, as there are so many disruptions and opportunities that you can have tunnel vision you then might miss?
Great question. I love that. And I think it's all circumstantial, unfortunately. I wish I had a yes or no answer with that. I think it depends on the dynamic at play and what exactly you're aiming to achieve. Yes, there are situations where if you set a grandiose goal, objectively, long-term, that you're aiming to achieve, you can develop tunnel vision around that. You can absolutely forget to take care of all the other aspects of what you're aiming to achieve in your life comprehensively. And it can also, it's part of the question, people ask you in an interview, what do you see yourself the next 5 or 10 years? I don't like that question simply because it pigeonholes people into giving an answer that may not be comprehensive of their lived experience and what they're aiming ultimately to achieve, which is be open to new opportunities as they present themselves. However, when it comes to these more relational dynamic skills, like a goal might be, I want to cultivate a stronger sense of empathy or compassion. I didn't grow up in an environment where that was really shown or exuded. There are a lot of opportunities for me to build those skills in tandem with all the other areas of my life. It doesn't have to be ancillary this or that. It doesn't have to be in a silo outside of other things I'm aiming to achieve. That's a really great question. Thank you for asking it, Lisa, and I hope I answered it. And if I didn't, I'm happy to talk offline about that more too.
Here's another interesting question that came in. Someone said, I have a hard time with some things that I want to change, but are far outside my ability. For example, cultural issues like a toxic environment in the gaming community. How do you approach an impossibly large thing like that?
Oh gosh, this is something, hi Darren, it's good to see your name here. It's something that I think is applicable in a lot of realms of our world. We can apply that to systemic racism. We can apply that to your example. We can apply that to, cultural belief systems in a myriad of settings. I think one of the most valuable mantras that was given to me through my graduate work was to think global, act local. And so that's kind of stuck with me over and over and over and over again. How can I think about this lofty concern that I have that's pretty overarching and systemic? It's pervasive and kind of bleeds its way into a lot of elements of my world. but also all I can control is myself. That's all I can control. So it takes a little bit of the pressure off our shoulders to think, I need to change everything. I need to make it all better. And I'm the only one who's going to do that. Well, if I look closer at my community, I can see that there are people probably with shared solidarity with me in a number of elements of this. So maybe I work with them and I partner together and I work with them to create groups, whether that's at work, like an ERG group, employee resource group, or that's in my personal life, and that's a volunteerism effort that I put in, what have you. There might be, I'm not super privy to the gaming industry, Darren, I apologize. You'll have to educate me later about that. But there are areas where we can, if we look at it a little bit more diluted, rather than being overwhelmed with how big it is, we can start to make reasonable action that feels tangible in the short term. Great question.
Oh, here's another good one, Chera. Somebody said, growth requires discipline. In this world of distraction, there are so many. What are the best tools or practices for staying on track?
Great question. I would say habits and routines to build structure where and when you can. So first, those SMART goals, paramount. Start there. Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound. Is this something that matches all of those things when it comes to the area I have identified as growth for me? Now, what are the small micro inclusions I'm going to adjust about my life, just like brushing our teeth, just like washing our hair? It's something that I innately do now because I don't even think about it. It's part of my routine. It's part of my structure because I created a neural network around it. So as we think about those things that we want to see growth in, what are those tiny micro experiences? Micro progressions over time result in macro growth. So try not to get overwhelmed with the big bang and start with the simple things that you can. Good question.
Yeah, baby steps. Absolutely.
Baby steps. Yeah, I do want to take a second and come back to these more questions. I do have a couple more slides though, and it might answer a couple of questions that we haven't yet, but I want to just to kind of get a reflection on what we've learned so far. So as we go through the next couple slides, I want to remind you all that application of this is dynamic, to try to stay open-minded, to stand for inclusion and promote individuality. Again, because if we're constantly doing the things that we're doing to appease the mass of people around us, what we think they want from us, unfortunately, that puts us into a spiral of chaos in our minds because we're not living authentically to ourselves. Try to find comfort in being uncomfortable. This is one of my most favorite things that I say to people in a lot of facets of my life. Get comfy being incredibly uncomfortable. Ambiguity and uncertainty are everywhere and they happen all the time. The more we try to lock up and control it, the more it puts our own nervous system into fight or flight, and the more limited we get to be in our growth. Try to take ownership of the things that you're aiming to achieve. Again, start small because it leads to bigger outcomes. And you may not be perfect at it yet, but you'll get there over time. Make sure when it comes to application with other people that you have clarity on the expectations for yourself and for others in your life. Strong situational awareness is built through this dynamic. A lot of our growth happens in tandem with the people around us. So to be aware of how I'm influencing or impacting people around me is really important in this process. Try to grow with people who are also growing in the same direction you're growing in. And remember that relational dynamics are a result of our behavior. How we show up is because of what has happened to us, what is happening with us, and what we're trying to achieve in the future. Relational dynamics are constantly shifting based on our own behavior. Where can we notice how we've shown up? Because the equation is never solely because of one other person. It's always a give and take. As leaders, this is the last little part here. Recognize places for growth. Be purpose-driven in it. Invoke a sense of servant leadership. Conscientious effort to develop effectiveness in listening, compassion, awareness, empathy, community building, and foresight. This is where strategy comes in. Try to praise the process over the outcome. Truly, my friends, the process is where we build the confidence and efficacy in our skills. So when you're in a leadership role, it's super important that you take on that awareness that the work that people are doing is seen, valued, heard, and understood by you. Redefine what success looks like. A lot of us have preconceived notions of what success is based on fixed, patriarchal, capitalistic views. A lot of us, all of us in America, really. So if we look at redefining what success looks like to me, maybe my success looks like feeling like I've got a full life and that I can find contentment in the places in my life that I'm not perfect because I'm a very perfection-driven person, right? Whatever that might be for you. Redefine what success looks like for yourself and if in your leadership role, because we all are in different facets, what it looks like for the people that you're leading. And then work through your own limiting beliefs. Again, this is where the value of other people comes into play. We all have blind spots. Every single one of us has blind spots and we don't always see them because they're blind spots for a reason, right? When we're around people who have different points of view, different perspective, different insights, they help us see those blind spots and help us build a more comprehensive worldview. It also helps us reduce our limiting beliefs and shift our perspective on things. Encourage collaboration. We don't need to go in it alone all the time. There's a lot of opportunity in life to be able to have and grow because we're working in a team dynamic. It cultivates trust, community, and fosters our own growth. And be sure to plant seeds where you can. When you plant seeds with your team or your people in whatever facet we're talking about, hope sprouts and develops team members into confident contributors. So be sure to lead by example and to continue to plant those seeds. And lastly, I'll stop here and we can talk, this is again, that continuum on both sides, but we can talk more about the Q&A because I know we have a couple more minutes. Oh, we're actually at time. Dang it. I'm so sorry, my friends. I'm okay to hang back for a few more minutes, Megan, if that's okay with you.
Sorry, what did you say, Chera?
Oh, I said we're at times, but I'm okay to hang back for a few more minutes to answer any questions if you want, if you're okay with that as well.
Sure. Let's see if we can tackle one more question before I provide some helpful links to our attendees. Let's try this one. Somebody asked, how do you handle a situation where you are committed to growth, but your supervisors might be in that fixed mindset?
Great question. That is a really hard one if you're specifically talking about in a role with management. I think that's candidly having very vulnerable conversations around things like, I'm interested in achieving growth here. I'm interested in pursuing advancement in this kind of way. Are you willing to support me in that? Right? Like asking for help a little bit. And then modeling the behavior that you're hoping to receive by that individual. A lot of us in different work dynamics have to navigate how to manage up, right? And that's a common phrase, common verbiage in corporate arena, how to manage up. And I think that's genuinely true because your leadership, whoever that might be, is also impacted and influenced by your behavior. So if you're willing to come to the table with a lot of vulnerability and a lot of compassion and to ask hard questions, to cultivate maybe a conversation around developing a growth mindset or bringing a training like this into your team, they may be more open to it than you think. And they may be more willing to see their own blind spots along the way. That's a really hard one to navigate.
So I just wanted to thank you, Chera, for volunteering your time and sharing your expertise with us today. I hope everybody leaves here with a new strategy or two to embrace a growth mindset in your everyday lives. If you'd like to learn more about Chera and her services, please visit her website. I've included a link in the chat box. And if you are looking for ways to get involved with the Alumni Association, I've included that link there too. I encourage you to explore benefits of membership in the Alumni Association, view upcoming events, learn about our chapters and affinity groups and more. And I did have a couple of folks ask if a recording is going to be available. Yes, I will email a recording of today's workshop to all of those who attended. So be on the lookout for that. And with that, I just want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Have a great rest of your week and go Ducks.
Go Ducks. Thank you all.
Bye.
Afraid to reach out.